Hello and welcome to Perspectives. On today's show, we have our usual roundup of stories affecting the Sikh community around the world. And as Narendra Modi shakes hands with the British Prime Minister in Johannesburg at the G20, he posts up on X how proud he is to do so. But unsurprisingly, the backlash from many, not least the brother of Jagtar Singh Johal, is predictable. And in Ottawa, we have pictures of a lonely dissenting voice at the Khalistan referendum. It appears not everybody was quite so happy with so many Sikhs turning out to vote. But the dissenter was threatened by a violent man with a sword. Well, yes, Hindut were at it again with their fantastical tales. All that and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
That boogeyman again that was threatening him when he, it wasn't really there, but it was there. In any event, welcome, folks. Thanks for joining us once again for Perspectives. Don't forget that we love your comments. We always visit them at the end of the show, and tonight is no different. So let's move on with the show tonight so we can get to those comments and see what you've shared with us. Back to you, Angus.
Indeed. And James and I together will be bringing you our own perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And indeed, at the end of the show, we'll take a look at loads of great comments which have been pouring in, so thank you as always for those. Right, James, let's get underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
We are going to start in the United States. Over in San Antonio, they have a popular river walk, and on that, they also have boats where you can get on the boats, learn about the history of the area, and, just enjoy yourself. And this one boatload of tourists, including an Indian family with their young toddler, were on board when a lady was playing these videos. I don't know if it was YouTube or TikTok, whatever they were on her phone, and she was blaring them very loudly. The captain of the boat had asked her to turn the volume down. She was disturbing other people on, trying to hear about the history and take in the tour. And she got very aggressive. The boat was pulling up the dock. She disembarked, but before she left, she went on a rant and pepper sprayed everybody on the boat, including that toddler. And it wasn't a race-related attack. It was just an ignorant woman who just felt that she was entitled. Not only that, but afterwards, when it was on social media, she went on about wanting to slap everybody on the boat and that she had absolutely no regrets for her actions. Let's take a quick look at a video that's been posted up on Instagram of the event itself.
Because someone asked her to turn down her phone. That's the entire situation. This woman, now identified by her TikTok handle, completely snapped on a public boat tour after the operator simply told her to lower the volume so passengers could hear the guide. Instead of putting the phone away, she started threatening people on board, yelling that she'd slap everyone and daring anyone to speak to her. And then it escalated into the part nobody can believe. She pulled out pepper spray and blasted an entire family sitting feet away, parents and their small child included. The aftermath was caught on video. You can see the dad rubbing his eyes, his pants soaked from the spray. Passengers said all of this happened over nothing more than a request to stop blasting videos on speaker. And the wildest part, after the footage went viral, she doubled down. She posted on her story bragging that she'd slap everybody on that boat and made it clear she wasn't sorry for any of it. No accountability, just more threats. She pepper sprayed a family, including...
So as you can see, just a total ignorant woman with absolutely no remorse to pepper spray not just families on an educational and tourism boat, but also a toddler. Come on. And she feels no remorse. It's just disgusting how some people feel entitled. And let me tell you, I'll be the first to say that there are people where I'm out in public and they've got their phone cranked up full. They're talking on the phone or yelling to the person on the phone, and they're, loud back or listening to their videos and stupid crap. And I want to go and slap them for doing it, but I don't. And I sure as hell wouldn't pepper spray them for it. But again, it just, just shows the ignorance of some people. And let's hope that she actually is arrested, because complaints have been filed with the police there in San Antonio. And given that she's not really hiding on social media, they should be able to track her down and charge her accordingly. And I hope that they throw the book at her. Not pepper spray, but at least throw a book at her. And as we move on, it is being reported by the BBC that there are several chairs being put up for auction that actually belong to the last Sikh ruler of India. They are expected to go to auction on Wednesday. So, with that said, these are chairs of great significance to the Sikh community, and that is in the fact that they are from the 19th century. They belong to, as I said, the last ruler of India that was of Sikh heritage, and they are expecting to get between 8,000 and 12,000 pounds for the pair. Now, Nicholas Shaw, a specialist at Olympia Auctions, said it anticipates a very wide interest in them when they go to auction, and that was because of the extensive history of them. Now, the picture that I could locate online were not very clear, but you can get an idea of the chairs themselves, and they belonged, as I said, was Duleep Singh and the youngest son of Maharajah Ranjit Singh, who founded the Sikh Empire in the Punjab in 1799. After being exiled, of course, Angus, you've done stories about him in the past. Duleep came to England at the age of 15 and over the years developed a warm friendship with the reigning monarch, Queen Victoria. With that said, he had purchased the Elvedon estate in 1863, and after his death in 1893, at the age of 55, he was buried on the grounds. Now, it was later purchased by Edward Cecil Guinness of the Guinness brewing family, and he kept those chairs in the mansion or at the estate when he purchased it. And again, they were made in Bombay, which is now Mumbai, about 1850, and they remained at that estate even after Edward Guinness took it over, as I said. So again, with the blackwood and the Indian motifs and and all of the detail to them, they do expect that they are going to get a lot of interest, and it wouldn't surprise me if they go much higher. I'm kind of hoping that someone will take the initiative to purchase them, and maybe for a tax deduction be able to donate them to a Sikh museum or somewhere where they can be admired for further generations, to just have that bit of history and culture still alive in the public where people can view them and really appreciate it. Now, as I said, these chairs bear witness to Maharaja Duleep Singh's admiration for quality craftsmanship and his efforts to create a home that reflected both his Indian heritage and his place in the English society. So again, hopefully somebody will find a charitable heart and purchase them for donation back to the community. And as we continue on, the Sikh high priests are again demanding the release of a decade-held Bandhi Singhs. And of course, this is an ongoing issue that we've covered many times. And I'm sure, unfortunately, we'll have to cover it many more, because I don't know that the India government is actually listening to what's being stated. But there is a bit of forward movement here. Now, the Bandhi Singhs, literally translated as jailed Sikhs or political prisoners, which we've known about for a long time. And the highest religious authorities, they've been turning this from a humanitarian crisis into a potent religio-political challenge. And essentially what they are looking is combining not only the Singhs, but also other issues of the day to try to keep it in the forefront of the newer generation as well, the suffering and the what's actually been called inhumane actions by the India government in keeping them, not hearing their pleas for clemency, and where the Supreme Court has actually issued clemency to certain individuals, the BJP and other governments have used that as a stepping stone for political gain within the Sikh community to gain points when it comes to the upcoming 2027 elections. They've used it in public announcements that there is clemency being granted. However, no action has actually been taken to follow up with that. The reason why is very speculative. However, it is assumed that it has a lot to do with the political fallout that would come from the actual actions from the victims. However, with that said, family members of different victims have actually come out in support of clemency and releasing of the Bandhi Singhs, and this is a big step forward. It allows the government to actually consider the clemency and to move on this as well as releases on humanitarian grounds, given the mental health of some individuals and so forth. Not just mentally, in terms of one who suffers from schizophrenia that has apparently been in remission, but also given the age of some of these Bandhi Singhs, it is only the humanitarian thing to let them out to, live out the rest of their days with their families. As I said, there has been some movement on that. And I'm going to just kind of jump down into this because I think that it's important to look at how this could play out if they were to give consideration to seriously offer the clemency and the releases that have been moved forward. The Supreme Court calls it inhumane and borderline torture because they have no end date. A lot of these individuals were actually sentenced to death. When they were sentenced to death, that is to take place within a certain time frame, within, of course, the Indian scope of reality. When I say that, I'm talking about the government. And when they were granted clemency, now they didn't get taken off of death row. They've been left there I'm referring to several, not all. But it is torture because they are still, in some cases, in isolation. Other times, they just don't know if they are still going to end up going to the death chambers because of the fluctuating policies of the government, and whether or not they'll ever be released. And for that, on a mental note, the judges have overstated that is cruel and unusual punishment because there is no firm closure in the minds of those inmates. Now, with that said, we are looking at the opportunity, as I said, for them to be released. The life in prison is one thing, but when you take into account that they don't even know what's happening from day to day, that creates absolutely no ability for them to have any closure in their minds or to make peace with what's going to happen next. Now, in terms of the India laws, the convicts serving life can legally seek remission after serving a minimum of 14 years in prison. Most long-serving Bandhi Singhs have met this criteria. However, the Supreme Court's interpretation holds that a life sentence means incarceration for the convict's natural life unless the sentence is specifically commuted by the executive. This crucial interpretation means that the release is never automatic, and even after decades serve, it rests entirely on the discretion of the government to grant clemency or remission. Now, in some cases, that can be multi-level governments, whether they look at where the prisoner is being held in that state, so therefore political input is derived from that state, and then at the federal level, as well as other inputs that come in from certain ministers and so forth. So to get all of these people to agree on one thing can really be a quagmire of dissenting opinions when it comes to the release or such. Now, when we look at this, of course, we know they've met the prerequisite, and it is very uncommon for inmates to be kept, or convicts as they may be called, to be kept for more than a couple of decades and not released, especially given the aging.
Oh, apologies, we seem to have lost James.
And we were looking at some of the...
Sorry, James.
Oh, sorry, Angus.
Yes, sorry, James. We lost you just for a few seconds, you phrase, but do carry on. You're back. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, Rajiv Gandhi, and this is what they call the Rajiv Gandhi precedent. Now, the Akal Takht, Jagtar, Gianni Kuldeep Singh, Gargaj directly invoked the case of Rajiv Gandhi, the assassination convicts, asking why Sikh detainees who have served their terms could not be granted the same consideration when those convicted for the former Prime Minister's assassination have been freed. So they're trying to compare it to other cases and saying, listen, this is very punitive, but they're also comparing it to a political, essentially, political retribution. And is, again, not going over well within the courts. And the courts are really pushing to have them released as well. Now, something else that came up is that the political outcomes between the release of Rajiv Gandhi convicts Again, when the family of the victims is supporting their release, that takes the pressure off of a lot of the politics of it, and they can not worry as much about the backlash by the voting public. So again, it is the prime opportunity for them to step up now, given that they're trying to get the votes in 2027. If they were to make these concessions and make these releases happen, then of course that would go a long way to that support that they're looking for in the 2027 election. Now, saying about the different points that they're bringing in is that the QIM has successfully maintained nonviolent continuous the state government since 2023, and they're staging. Oh, we're unstable again. We still good there, Angus?
You're still there, James. Keep going.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Sorry, folks. We were having a bit of a technical issue there.
It's interfering and pulling the plugs out, probably outside the building.
There. All right. But in any event, again, this could really bring a closure to a lot of people in all different aspects. So once again, we'll have this full story on our Substack page, so you can take it in its entirety and go through it as we run low on time every night, and this is no exception when it comes to our timing. Now, tomorrow night, I will get into this one here, this story that looks at Modi framing the ninth Guru's supreme sacrifice as a blueprint of national security and universal brotherhood. So we'll get into that tomorrow night as we are running short on time here for my segment today. Back to you, Angus.
Yes, James. Glad to see you still with us. Yes, the Bandhi Singh story. It's horrendous, really. It really just typifies and symbolises the issues with Indian justice, and I use the word justice quite loosely there because, of course, it is the old justice delayed, justice denied. Well, here it is working the other way. Of course, the Bandhi Singhs, these poor gentlemen, who have well and truly served their sentences and are now just languishing in jail. I mean, again, I use that word languish in jail. It immediately evokes thoughts of Amritpal Singh and Jagtar Singh Johal and many others, many of their colleagues in modern times who are languishing in jails. There's a common theme here, isn't there? It's just, if you happen to upset the BJP or the RSS or the Indian ruling elite, good luck to you, because you'll get sent to prison and you'll never be seen again. So again, it is very symbolic of what the problem is with India. And of course, the comparison there, and this is clever of the team behind this latest initiative to try and release the Bandhi Singhs, is of course bringing up, for example, the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. Now, if I'm correct in remembering, I think Rajiv Gandhi was actually assassinated by a Tamil tiger, a Tamil, and of course, if he was let free, it highlights firstly. Well, the precedent is there, so why can't you do it with the Bandhi Singhs? But it also highlights actually the true reality of the situation. Is it's because these gentlemen are Sikhs. Now, if these gentlemen were, for example, policemen who were guilty of extrajudicial murders in the 1980s and 1990s, as many of them were, would they have been released by now? Yes, they probably would have been, because, of course, they are representative of the Indian state. But, heaven help you, God help you if you're a Sikh. And clearly, and the key word again that came up in that report, James, was at the discretion of the Indian government. Well, yeah, of course, the Indian government, as we highlight on a regular basis, for some reason, we talk about it regularly, does not like the Sikh community. It will do anything it can to try and bury the Sikh community. It wants to annihilate the Sikh community. It wants to annihilate Sikh culture. So, of course, these Bandhi Singhs, who were active in the 1980s and 1990s, acting primarily in self-defence. Let's not forget this. These were not militant terrorists. They were acting in self-defence against a government that was murdering their community, that was murdering young men in their community, that was taking young men, whose police force were taking young men out of their workplaces, their homes, disappearing them, and they were next heard of anonymously as a bunch of ashes in a crematorium. as Jaswant Singh Kalra actually managed to uncover, fortunately. We do know that potentially up to 100,000 or even more young Sikh men were murdered during that time. And of course the Bandhi Singhs, many of which were acting in revenge, or not just in revenge, in self-defense to try and prevent this from happening. So again, the whole premise of the fact that they're in prison is questionable anyway, and the fact that they are being detained indefinitely, and even to this day, even this goes beyond humanity. These are old men now, as you say, James. Many of these men are suffering from mental health issues. They're suffering from health issues. They should not be in prison. They should have been released years before. So, but what is interesting, another interesting aspect to this, again, for the team, the QIM that are supporting this new initiative, is they are linking it, of course, now to more recent issues, more recent imprisonments. I think the report mentioned there the Kot Kapura and the Bebel, Callan, beg your pardon, incidents, again, where prisoners remain in prison. But of course, by linking it to more modern people residing in jail, it is, as the report says, it is ensuring that the new generation, younger people, are inheriting this issue and therefore feel as passionately about it, and therefore will continue, even as the older generation sort of moves on and becomes less effective. Is the young generation can continue that passion and motivation to get these people released, because it is an absolute travesty of justice. Again, it just highlights the issue with Indian justice. That Indian justice only works for the Indian state. It does not work for the common man or woman in the street. It is an absolute disgrace, again, for a so-called democracy that claims it runs its society through the rule of law. It does not. It's more akin to a banana republic, as I say very regularly. So, and then the other story I just want to mention, of course, is that very tragic story of Duleep Singh. And the Eldon estate, I do know the Eldon estate actually, and the Eldon estate was, it was bought by Duleep Singh, but essentially the story is very sad. Duleep Singh, as you said, James, is the youngest son of Maharajah Singh, Ranjit Singh, the founder of the Sikh Empire. Now what the British did is when the East India Company annexed the Punjab, they finally, the British state, we talk about states running out of accountability and control. The British state essentially kidnapped Duleep Singh, removed him from the Punjab. Obviously, they were fearing, because he potentially was the next Maharaja, he was the successor, he was the potential focal point around which the new Sikh empire could arise. So, of course, what the British did very well in those days, when they were empire building, was they removed Duleep from the scene. They would never let him return to the Punjab. They did everything in their power to ensure that he would never be allowed to return to the Punjab. And he was ripped away from his mother as a young teenager. His mother stayed in the Punjab, but he was taken away from his mother, and he was never allowed to revisit his mother again. In fact, in many years as a grown adult, mature adult, he did actually return. But ultimately, they took him back to the UK, and Queen Victoria, and actually, as it turned out, when he was a young manipulative boy, it was easy to control him because he was young. His mind was easily controlled. And they showered him with gifts. They showered him with a stipend, a monthly large sum of money, which meant he could support himself as he grew into a young man. They gifted him, or essentially he bought the Eldon estate, and that is where he lived for many years. And he actually lived a very good life. He didn't want for anything, etc. But the true tragedy of the story is behind that, is that he was ripped away from his homeland. He was the next Maharaja. He was not allowed to go visit his mother, and he did try many years later, as I say, to do that. So again, this whole story about his chairs being sold, it is infused with a very sad, tragic story. It does talk about the British Empire. Well, the British Empire, there's good parts of it, there are evil parts of it. This is one of the saddest parts of it, is that, this young man was taken away from it. And somebody will buy those chairs, but we do certainly hope that they go to a home that respects their heritage and understands their heritage. I wish we had the money, James, to go buy those chairs and put them in our studio.
Absolutely, or at least in one of the gurdwaras where they could be honored, or the Sikh Museum of History somewhere. Like, I just feel like for them to be in somebody's residence, I just feel, a little awkward on. I think that they should be shared with the community.
Indeed, it reminds me of the Guru Granth Sahib Ji story, the handwritten holy scriptures that were found in Edinburgh. Where should they go? That's well, right. They should be gifted to Khalistan. Well, there you go. Then maybe these chairs could be gifted to Khalistan. and sit
And sit in the,
sit there.
sit in the
Absolutely.
Parliament.
Yes, good call. Yeah, there you go. Sit to either side of the Parliament Speaker. What a great suggestion, James. Right, talking of Indian justice and its questionable capabilities, I'm going to move on again. Talk about Jagtar Singh Johal, because just a few days ago, our own Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, there's a weird slip. Our own Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, they're effectively one and the same in many issues. Our own Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, was in Johannesburg for the G20 meeting. And of course, there was Narendra Modi representing India. And of course, on social media, right across the news, there's these pictures of Keir Starmer shaking Narendra Modi's hands. Look how pallid they look. Look how friendly they look. And I have to say, it rather turns my stomach seeing a photo like this, because my feelings of Keir Starmer are well known. They're not very positive. My feelings of Narendra Modi are equally about the same, actually. And to see these two gentlemen in such an amicable embrace, it's certainly in context of so many of the stories that we talk about, is really quite stomach churning. But anyway, of course, this has unsurprisingly raised the ire of many people behind the Jagtar Singh Johal campaign, because of course Jagtar Singh Johal still resides in Dibrugarh. Sorry, that's Amritpal Singh. Still resides in jail in India. And Narendra Modi posted himself on his own X account, posted up these photos. It said it was wonderful to meet Prime Minister Starmer in Johannesburg this year. And these are the key words. This year has brought new energy to the India-UK partnership. We will keep driving it forward across many domains. And again, I find it quite distasteful, these words, new energy to the India-UK partnership, when we have all these issues bubbling away behind the scenes. And then in response to that, unsurprisingly, Jaggi's brother, Gurpreet Singh, he posted up, he reshared or retweeted, whatever you call it, this post. And he said, there's one thing we've not seen from the new energy to the India-UK partnership. That is the release and return of arbitrarily detained national Jagtar Singh Johal, his own brother. Will your country return my brother before the end of the year? Well, we can but hope and pray that will to be the case. But it does seem, as we often say, is the British government are more interested in trade deals. We do know that the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, met with her counterpart only recently and again didn't even mention it. This has to be one of the most appalling, and again I'll use that phrase, travesties of justice, that Jagtar Singh Johal is now in his 9th year. And in fact, Gurpreet posts up on a daily basis on his X account, he posts up a counter of the days and the weeks, etc., that are passing. And that was as of yesterday. 2,945 today days of wrongful imprisonment, the same of torture and abuse. Don't forget, this guy was tortured, Jaggi was tortured, thanks to the British security services sending intelligence to India that helped detain him arbitrarily, and he was then tortured. What is the British government to say about that? We, as a nation that have signed up to the United Nations Commission Against Torture, well, one of our citizens was tortured in India, and the proof is out there, the evidence is out there, and have we even talked about it? No, we haven't. 2,945 days of human rights breaches, 2,945 days of injustice and of arbitrary detention. No evidence, no conviction. And another one that, again, just sticks in my stomach is that Starmer himself said, before he became Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, he referred to the arbitrary detention of Jagtar Singh Johal. He won't even say, he refuses to say those words now, even when prompted by journalists when they're interviewing him. They say, can you say arbitrary detention? I can't even say it myself now. Arbitrary detention of Jagtar Singh Johal. He will not say it because he knows he will upset Narendra Modi by uttering those two words. That is the sad indictment of our Prime Minister. The Prime Minister of the 6th largest nation on the planet, economically speaking, is scared of India. We are scared of the Indian state. We will not hold up the Indian state to account for glaring breaches of human rights, for torture of one of our own citizens. We are a cowardly country. Our Prime Minister is a coward. It's as simple as that. So I find it absolutely appalling. And I just want to, just as a final note on this subject, is the Sikh Federation UK, in response to all this, they're starting a new initiative to try and, again, we talk about grassroots activism. It's trying to encourage, if you're here in the UK, please do go to Sikh Federation UK website, and they have linked up a new campaign to try and encourage you to write to your MP or to email, I'm showing my age there, to write to your MP, to email your MP. And they actually have, on their website, they have a pre-written email. If you don't want to write the email yourself, they've got this pre-written email here. It just sets out all the facts and figures that you need to know and that your own MP needs to know. And you can email this, and they've given a link to where to look for your own MP, to how to find your own MP if you don't know who it is, and how to find their email address. Or they've made it even easier for you. You can click on this link. It will take you through a process that essentially automates the process that will email your MP in less than a minute with this message. But what I would, if you've got the time, please do look up your own MP, find his own email address. They're easily to find. I've emailed my MP regularly about lots of issues. Surprise, surprise. It's a very easy process to do. But what makes your email more effective is if you write it yourself in your own words. If you can't do that, you don't want to do it, just copy and paste this email. But otherwise, do write an email and say, look, I'm horrified that one of our own citizens has been tortured in India. He remains in arbitrary detention in India. Please do something about it. And the more personal you make that email, the more powerful it will be to your own MP. And again, this is all about grassroots activism. The more of us who email our MPs about this, the more chance that pressure will be pushed up politically through those political layers up to the Prime Minister. And finally, maybe one day, our useless Prime Minister might actually listen to the people, to his subjects in this nation, James.
Absolutely, Angus. If we can go back to that other picture for a second, I just was noting something that right there, yeah. If you look at Modi, he's always wearing these vests, and the way that it's slid on the side and the shaping of it, it almost looks like it's Kevlar,
Yes.
It just, to me, it looks like a security vest over anything, because I was wondering, why is he always wearing those ugly vests? And that actually is starting to make sense. And then if you look at Starmer with his left hand around the back of Modi, I think Modi's got that smile because he's saying, see, you can't stab me in the back.
Yes,
that's my job, damn it.
Yes, you may well be right. You may well be right.
But absolutely. And I just wanted to, again, give a shout out to Gurpreet Singh Johal and just say, I have nothing but respect for how he has stuck up for his brother, how he's fought relentlessly for the release of his brother, and he has poured his heart and his soul into the struggle. And anybody that can take the opportunity to email your MP and other representatives in government, I encourage you to do so, because as I said, his brother's been fighting, and just let him know that he's not alone in this struggle, that there are other people that believe that this is so wrong, that there's been inaction by several different prime ministers and people in government, that really there's no reason why this should have taken so long for them to secure his release and get him home.
Yes, and as my podcast guest last week, Duleep Singh, said, clearly the issues that affect the Sikh community are only of interest to our politicians when it suits them. They become political footballs, I think was my own phrase, is that when it works, when the issue works for their political campaign at any given time, they will do something about it. But when it doesn't, they're just not interested. Which again has been a prime example of what's happened with Keir Starmer, is that when he was leader of the opposition, when he wasn't in government, we will launch a 1984 inquiry about the British government's involvement in Operation Blue Star. That's been completely forgotten about. In opposition, he talked about the arbitrary detention of Jagtar Singh Johal, but now he's Prime Minister, he can't even utter those words, etc., etc. The issues go on. It's a shame. It's an absolute. It's a stain again on British politicians. Not just British politicians; it's politicians the world over. So for some reason, it's genetic in all their bodies. Anyway, let's move on, James. And the Ottowa referendum over the weekend, and we showed some pictures up yesterday. Fabulous turnout. Well done to the community in Ottawa and the region for turning out in such horrible inclement weather. But of course, there was this lone figure, and thank you to one of our correspondents on email. You know who you are. Thank you for this. Sent me the video, a link to a media channel, a news outlet. I call it a news outlet. Again, I use that term loosely. It is a propaganda outlet. They actually showed a video, and unfortunately I can't show the video because it is copyrighted, so I've taken some stills from that video just to sort of talk you through what actually happened. And yes, at the referendum over the weekend, there was this lone figure, this lone dissenter, who appeared with his megaphone. He started ranting and raving at these wonderful crowds, these smiling, happy crowds, despite, again, the inclement weather. They're all there with the smiles on their faces and really enthusiastic, positive atmosphere. And he's there in the background just sort of ranting away. And unsurprisingly, a couple of the guys sort of turned up and approached him and started having a go at him. And again, it was all verbal. There's nothing. Let me stress here: there was no violence, there was no intimidation, there was no harassment. It was just simple. One of the guys from the community just sort of approached him and started talking and say, look, basically, and it was in Punjabi, so I don't know what was said, but again, it's pretty predictable what was said. Basically, look, do you mind going away and just not harassing us, because just let us do our referendum in peace, etc. And now the police, of course, were there in force, because of course they wanted to ensure that there was no public disorder. So of course the police were there, just keeping things calm. An argument did ensue between these two guys. And as you can see from this photo here, the Sikh gentleman was being essentially held back, not by the police actually, but by one of his mates, by the looks of it. So look, calm down, don't get provoked, don't get drawn in. And again, this is a key lesson to all our community out there. Please, Hindutva, know this methodology. They will always try and provoke you. The prime example of that was one of the protests outside one of the Hindu mandirs, I think it was in Canada, where the Khalistani protesters they weakened. They were provoked by Hindutva forces in the Mandir, who provoked them. In the end, the Sikhs just gave in and gave into their testosterone and their anger, and they chased these guys waving their flags and trying to hit them with their flagpoles. For heaven's sake, don't fall into that temptation. That is what they're trying to do. They are trying to provoke you into violence, because of course after that event, of course that little snippet didn't show the provocation, but it just showed the snippet of a couple of guys waving their flags, trying to hit these Hindutva guys with their flagpoles. And that went viral, of course, and saying, oh, look at these violent Khalistanis. That is what they do. So please, in all these protests, never, ever, ever give in to the temptation to reacting. Do not get provoked, as this poor gentleman here was clearly being provoked. Unfortunately, calmer, cooler minds were there saying, no, just don't get provoked. Now, what is interesting is that this media outlet, and I say media outlet, it's called Media Bazirgan. And it does report on lots of issues. I think it's Canada-based, and it reports on lots of issues. But it does quite frequently report on issues to do with the Sikh community, and it's always with an anti-Khalistan bent, and actually, in fact, quite often an anti-Sikh bent as well. So clearly, it's a right-wing. Again, I use the word news outlet loosely. It's a right-wing YouTube channel. Let's call it. That's probably a better description. And quite often, it will put a completely biased, prejudiced sort of perspective on these sorts of issues, and in the description of this video, it says that this guy who was with a megaphone trying to disrupt things, saying he was threatened by a man with a sword, advancing towards him with a sword. Yeah, well, there's his sword, his kirpan. And look, there's a young boy of about 10 years old threatening him with a sword. I mean, do me a favour. So again, you can start to see how the whole narrative is being slightly twisted here. It sounds terrible. He came up to him. He was threatened with a sword. Look, with all due respect, there's an elderly gentleman with a kirpan and a boy of about, 10, 11 years old with his kirpan. I mean, do me a favour. So again, you can see the camera never lies, they say. Well, there's the truth. So what was this guy trying to protest about? A request to Canadian people there, that's Sikhs for Justice, are a few individuals who are troubling this land of Canada and its people. We Sikhs have no connection with them. Sikhs for Justice. And then there's something in Punjab, which obviously I can't read. Hopefully our audience can have a look at that. Canada is a beautiful country. Why are we troubling the system and the people here with our own problems? Why are we disturbing the people here by doing car rallies, taking out processions and holding demonstrations, etc., etc.? And then he was quietly escorted away by the police, looking slightly forlorn. And at the end of the protest, of course, and as is shown in the video, the Indian tricolour was torn apart, as has become rather customary in these sorts of events. And of course, again, this YouTube channel tried to make a big deal. Oh, the Indian flag was torn up. Well, yeah, so what? I mean, I know it's evocative and it's rather emotive thing, but you've got to understand why that flag was ripped up. So ultimately, so that was the story. But again, I think it's interesting that that this message that this guy was trying to portray. I mean, he does look of Indian heritage. Does he look like a Sikh? Well, he's certainly not an Amritdhari Sikh. Is he in the Sikh community? I don't know. Our audience, I'm sure, particularly our Canadian audience, might have an opinion on that, and maybe can enlighten James and I what your feelings are about this guy's background. But I think it's sad in many ways, and again, it's very Hindutva-esque. It's to try and get people out there to try and sow division, and the message that he's saying is, look, we Sikhs are not aligned with this fringe community of Khalistanis. They don't represent us. Well, all I would say, I think, in simple answer to that is, how many people turned up to that referendum? 53,000 Sikhs turned up to that referendum. If you're trying to say these people don't represent the Sikh community, well, how many people turned up on your side, mate? You know, I think, James, we can draw our own conclusions about which side actually represents the Sikh community in Canada.
Absolutely, and I've seen this journalist at various events here in Metro Vancouver as well, and he always seems to, we'll say in a polite way, we'll say that he elaborates and exaggerates a lot of things. I mean, I've seen him at events, and then later he's claiming online that he was threatened and they were aggressive, and none of it is true. I was there, I saw what was going on. They just asked him about his filming, and they were polite. He just turned it into something, as he always does. It's a very common thread for this individual, and I don't know who's paying him, but let me tell you, he does have a large following online, which really makes me wonder, because of the fact that, you know, he's obviously not shadow banned like we are.
Indeed.
And at the end of the day, as you very rightfully pointed out, Angus, is that he is very much a pro-Hindutva and against Khalistan. It is just what he lives for, and you know, he likes to exaggerate, inflate things, and just come up with untruthful stories, and that's just how he's built his channel. So it's a shame to see him, and it wouldn't surprise me if he actually had a hand in having this person there with the signage and staging this for his own channel. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's very clickbaity, isn't it? I think looking at the videos I've looked of his in the past, they are very clickbaity. They're very dramatic. They're creating drama and division, etc. That's always very engaging for people on YouTube. So yeah, to be honest, it's quite likely that maybe he did actually put this guy up just to create a bit of tension, a bit of a story to report on. But yeah, and again, the good question there is, who's funding him? Who is funding him? We do know that Hindutva and the RSS have an enormous financial resource that they do pour into their global propaganda campaigns and their activities and their operations right across the diaspora. So yeah, it's not impossible that there is money coming from India to push these sorts of stories. It certainly wouldn't surprise me. So anyway, so there you go, James. On that note, let's move on to our wonderful audience and the comments that have been pouring in. And we had a load of comments after not yesterday's show. It was 2 days. Yeah, was it 2 days ago? When were you off, James? That was a couple of days ago, wasn't it? Monday.
2 days ago, yeah.
Yeah, so the show I did after that, we had a lot of comments after that show, and let's just run through a few of them. Bandhi Singh starts off, and I did of course talk about the RSS as I regularly do. It is a terror organisation. Their channels should be blocked. Now this is an interesting one. Somebody came in called Sita Venkatasan, whatever. Rubbish. Get to know the movement before commenting. Well, unfortunately to you for your comment, I can say from my own research, and I actually am deeply reading quite an extensively researched book written by a professor at Punjab University about the history of Hindutva. I have to say it's very heavy going, because of course it's a lot about the history of the RSS, and it's taken me days and days and weeks to get through it. But and it's written by an academic. But I have to say it's a very, very enlightening book, and I will be hopefully interviewing that very professor in Punjab University in the foreseeable future to ask her about Hindutva and the RSS and its roots back in the 19th century. It is actually a fascinating story. It's quite a frightening story in many ways. And my podcast this week with Dr. Greywell is actually comparing the rise of the RSS to the rise of the Nazi Party, and the parallels, I have to say, are actually quite astonishing and scary. So, but yeah, my message to Sita Venkatasan is, we actually do know about the RSS, and I have to say, having reading this book and the research that I've done, I wonder if I might even know a little bit more about the RSS than yourself. And I can tell you that Bandhi Singh's comment is perfectly valid, James. It is a terror organisation.
Absolutely. And for anybody to step up and to defend the RSS, it just shows the mindset and where they're coming from. Chances are it's another bot or just, more propaganda channels that happen to stumble across this and respond to it. And that's, generally what we see.
Balvindajit Nagi, a word of warning. I guess Galmut drinkers, I think I can probably translate that without speaking Punjabi. The Brahmins monitor our remarks. Yes, James, I have no doubt that our names are probably on a file somewhere in RAW and the other intelligence agencies in India. They monitor what we're saying and indeed what our audience are commenting.
Absolutely. And, at least I'm in good company because I know Russia monitored my reporting in Ukraine. So, it's not just India. I'm used to it.
Yes, indeed. Actually, I think I'm on a KGB file from many years ago in the Afghan days. So, yes, we're in good company, James. Excellent. Maybe we'll be sharing it.
We'll drink some vodka and get over it.
Well, hopefully we don't end up in a cell in Moscow one day. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Balvinders. Jaspal Chatterfal. Upper class Hindus, yes, this is an important point. Upper class Hindus, the upper caste really, use the lower caste population, they call them Hindus, as the population. They're not educated. They use these people to manipulate and create division, to turn them against the minorities. Even though these people are called Hindus, the class is lower class, they don't even allow them to enter their temples. So basically this whole point, if I may paraphrase this point, is that the lower caste, the vast majority of Indians who are lower caste, and they are controlled and manipulated by the upper caste to then turn on the enemies of the upper caste. Of course, by that read the Muslims, the Sikhs, etc. And so basically, unfortunately, many of them are sheep. They just believe everything they are told and everything they are spoon-fed by the Indian media. That narrative that is entirely controlled by the Indian state, by that read the Brahmins, manipulates the lower caste, the massive majority of India, into turning against their fellow Indians, James.
Absolutely. And I think that that's going to be something we see coming up to that election in 2027, where Modi and other members of the higher castes are going to be manipulating, whether it's the Sikhs, the Muslims, the Dalits. They're going to try to manipulate the voting force to be with them. But watch what happens in 2028 once that election's over, and watch how quickly the tides turn once again against those who have been oppressed and really abused for so many centuries.
And unfortunately, I have to draw a bit of a parallel to the West here. Is that we are all controlled by what we see, hear, and read in the media, and how often is the media accused of manipulating the population, the sheep in the population. And it horrifies me sometimes when I see how easily people are swayed. The Iraq War was a prime example of that. Again, that's a rabbit hole we won't go down. Yeah. Stay safe. This is a nice comment, James. I hope you get the care you need. Loads of comments like this, James. With a few more coming up about how much you were missed. But this is quite an interesting one. I didn't know this. You believe that the Darbar Sahib, you don't know if it's genuine or a conspiracy, but apparently on the ground investigations have said that where is it? The colour. There's been a colour change at the Darbar Sahib. You don't know whether it's a natural phenomenon or renovation work that's going on at the moment, gradually removing gold from the holy site. The committee, the SGPC committee, has only collected gold dust so far, but the organisation of volunteers is not bad. Etc., etc. So I think the point that Stacey's making here, James, is that the Darbar Sahib itself might be changing colour, whether by natural phenomenon or by some conspiracy.
That's a very interesting point, something that I hadn't even considered or been aware of up until this point. Maybe we'll have to try to reach out and find out what's going on over there.
I wouldn't put it past the Indian state. Of course, it's very unlikely it's a natural phenomenon because the building's been standing for a very long time and hasn't changed colour. So if indeed it is changing colour or gold is magically disappearing, I would be very suspicious. And I'd actually have a lot of CCTV cameras up there keeping an eye on things. So anyway, if anybody else in the audience has heard anything like that, do let us know. This is a really nice comment. I don't have time sadly to go through it in great detail. Punjab, because of course I did a comment by Punjab the other day, which is a very good comment. And good morning, Angus and James. Where is he today? He was off sick, poor James. All right, there's a deep sense of gratitude and awe for your steadfast commitment to the dream of a Sikh homeland. Well, James, as we often say, it's easy to support because the whole concept makes so much sense to our Western values, to our simple values of freedom of speech, freedom of expression, etc. It stands for everything that we stand for. And then this comment is is a beautifully written comment, but essentially it was, as it signs off, thank you for bearing witness to a history that is shared even when it has been silenced and or misrepresented, with profound respect and gratitude. Well, basically, as I said at the beginning, it is very easy to get aligned, even as white Westerners who have actual no genuine stake in a Sikh sovereign homeland because by virtue of our background, we still align with it because, again, as I said, it aligns with everything that we stand for, particularly here in the democratic West. Many things that we take for granted, unfortunately, in the Punjab, the Sikh community in the Punjab, not just Sikh community, but even Hindus and people of any ethnicity or religious standing in the Punjab do not enjoy the same freedoms that we do here in the West. And yet this is in so-called democratic India that is ruled by the rule of law. It is not. And sadly, James, as we have to keep highlighting, we will keep campaigning for Khalistan because that is, as I said in many podcasts, the only solution is Khalistan, because that is the only way that the Sikh community and other communities will be free of this Indian state oppression.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can thank my parents for my upbringing in the fact that I respect everyone equally. I believe in human rights. I believe in dignity. Believe that you don't judge people based on their color, on their religion, or anything. And you try to help people to become better, no matter what it is, better at their religion, better at education, better as human beings. And you never put people down. And that was just the way I was brought up, and really kind of folds into, I think, why I believe, and why, Angus, you believe so strongly that Khalistan is a human right, that the people of Punjab have the opportunity, but also the right to determine their destination, their destiny, and to create that sovereign state as the hopefully the referendum will conclude and show the UN and others around the world that it is a highly divisive issue in some realms, but at the end of the day, the majority want it, I do believe.
Yeah, and that is why we will continue to campaign for that very thing. And yes, we had, as I said, Jez, we had loads of comments from our audience, very concerned about your absence.
Thank you, everyone, for the comments. I appreciate that. Yeah, feeling better, thank you.
Absolutely. Speedy recovery. Well, he's back. That's how speedy it was. Thank you, Narendra and Avatar Dylan. Nice one, Angus. Should have tried to get a guest on as James is sick. Anyhow, well done on your own. Well, yes, actually, unfortunately, I only found out James was sick about 5 minutes before we went on air. So unfortunately, there's no chance at some ungodly hour in the morning that we do start recording. There's no way I could pick up the phone to anybody. Say, quick, can you come on the show? So, but yeah, a nice idea. And then Harjeet Rosha, greetings. You proved that you're capable of handling the show all by yourself. I know it felt very lonely. And I did miss our interaction, James. It was quite hard to do it on my own. Actually, it's funny how how the show sort of managed to build itself with us sort of chatting between ourselves. But anyway, the bodies are just reacting to the change of weather. Angus, I thought of sending you a Thanksgiving gift, but then on second thought, what was the idea of sending you a turkey by post? Well, there you go. I have to say, I'm not a big fan of turkey. It's a big tradition here in the UK. We tend to have turkey at Christmas. We obviously don't do Thanksgiving, but we do Christmas. And turkey, I have to say, we tend to have a chicken because I find turkey a bit dry, James.
I like a good turkey for, Thanksgiving or, Christmas, whatever. But that's about the extent of it. I don't go out of my way for it at any other time. But again, and also to our friends in the US and our viewers there, I know that you're getting geared up for Thanksgiving in 2 days as well for American Thanksgiving. So our thoughts are with you for a great holiday. Be careful out there traveling and pay attention to the weather conditions. Make sure you go drive accordingly to that, because we want to see you next week as well. So be safe out there, right, Angus?
Indeed, and thank you, Harjeet, for your thoughts about sending me turkey. So much appreciated. Yeah. Now, Critics Corner again. Hooray! 2 days running. We finally again have a bit of a run in Critics Corner. Gurm Singh says Khalistan, just another religious militant group. They would change Punjab into another Afghanistan. I mean, oh dear. Where to begin on this one? I mean, Afghanistan is run on very strict Islamic principles. It is a theocracy. It is very clearly a theocracy. The Taliban who run Afghanistan run it under very, very strict controls under their very, very strict interpretation of the Quran. It is not, I have to say, a great society if you're a woman. Women really find life very difficult, certainly compared to how they used to live in Afghanistan decades ago. And to try and compare Khalistan with Afghanistan, I think is really deeply ignorant, with all due respect, Gurm Singh, because clearly you don't understand what Khalistan is or will be and what it will stand for. It will not be a theocracy. Let me try and explain to you that it will be run under Sikh principles. It will follow all the fundamental principles and ideology of Sikhi, which in itself is very different to that of Islam. But ultimately, the state of Khalistan will be governed in a very democratic way. It will not be imposing Sikh principles upon its population. Everybody will be free to practice their own religion. And the difference between Islam that controls Afghanistan and Sikhi that will control Khalistan is that Islam exists to forcibly, in many cases, convert people to that religion. And they do that around the world. That is just one of their fundamental principles of Islam. Sikhi is completely different to that. It does not forcibly, it has no inherent demand within the religion to go out and convert people, to act as missionaries, to convert people to Sikhi. Quite the opposite. Every Sikh is part of their sort of upbringing, the Sikh upbringing, is taught to respect other people's religions and help people become better Christians, help Muslims become better Muslims, help Hindus become better Hindus, etc. So the whole concept is 180 degrees different from Islam and what Afghanistan will be. So unfortunately, I've given you probably little bit more credence than maybe I should on that to try and explain the situation, because I think you were just having an angry rant or whatever. But ultimately, I'll say to those who might align with this thought, it's going to be nothing like Afghanistan. Afghanistan is a very, very different concept to what Khalistan will be. Afghanistan is not a democracy, and certainly in the Western sense of the word, and Khalistan effectively will be. James.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you look at the comparison, I think that, again, I agree with you, Angus, that I think it's an ignorant comparison myself, just, bluntly. But also you look at when you see world politics in comparisons, you actually see potential cooperation between Afghanistan and India. So where would you see that alignment with Khalistan in any realm being similar to India's formation of government and the way that they lead on a caste system, and the Brahmins, and the other end with the Muslims and the Sharia law and all of that. So again, I think that it is a misinterpretation. I think it's an ignorant comparison, and I think that it's completely wrong. But again, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we respect that as well.
And actually, then there's a good point. Here's another comparison for you. In Afghanistan, if you wanted to stand up and criticise the ruling Taliban, is that I don't fancy your chances of survival very long. But you do that in Khalistan, you can stand up and you can criticise the Khalistan government, and you will not be whipped away into prison or whatever, as there will be a much clearer freedom of speech. Again, that's what Khalistan stands for. And that's even before we even talk about the treatment of women in Khalistan, where, of course, again, under Sikhi, women are treated as equal. Since the very first days of the religion's establishment, women are treated as equal. Again, they were centuries ahead of their time. Even the British Empire, even Great Britain in the days of the Sikh Empire, we treated our women as second-class citizens. They didn't even get the vote till the early 20th century. So again, the Sikh religion was centuries ahead of even Western values. So again, that is what Khalistan will stand for. So anyway, thank you, Gurm Singh. As I say, you would be free to make this comment in Khalistan, but you would not be free to make this comment in Afghanistan. There is another comparison for you. So there you go. And the final set.
And you're certainly free to make it on our program, because we welcome comments from all sides.
Exactly. We welcome Critics Corner. Please keep them coming. We do love Critics Corner. It's always good to have a bit of a laugh and a bit of a banter with our critics. So don't be afraid. Wade in there and criticise us. We do enjoy it. Kanwar Bir Singh. Oh yes. Now the picture hanging on your back wall needs to have some some words. Without the words, it looks meaningless. Well, okay, I'm interested in our audience's opinion on this, because somebody else made a similar sort of comment. Why can't we put a caption under Bindravali Ji's photo? Well, my response to this, well, look, this photograph or similar photographs like this hang in every single Gurdwara around the world. So, of course, if you are a regular attendee at your Gurdwara, you will instinctively know who this person is. If you are in the Sikh community, it is very likely, if you know your history and your heritage, you will know who this person is. So, again, I'm actually surprised, but again, I'm not a Sikh, so I can't judge, but I'm very curious in our audience's opinion on this. Do you think there should be a caption to explain who this gentleman behind me is? To me, I thought it would be pretty obvious, because most, or not most, but certainly many videos I see in the Sikh community who talk about the issues that we talk about have a picture of Bindravali Ji behind them. And as I say, his picture hangs in every Gurdwara. So I'm astonished that anybody actually out there would say, well, can you please explain who it is? Or you need to explain to people who it is. But maybe, James, maybe it's actually to our audience outside the Sikh community who need to know it is. Well, all I would say, if you are outside the community...
That's what I was just thinking as well, Angus. Yeah, I was thinking maybe they're talking about, because we're trying to educate a mass audience on the culture, on the history, on the, the struggles, the genocide, so many different things, that maybe they're just pointing out that, that would be another reason for people to actually continue after the program to go and say, oh, who was that behind Angus? And now they know who it is, but they can search for more details. Maybe that's maybe what they're getting at.
Maybe that is. Maybe it's for people outside the community who might be watching. So yeah, I beg your pardon. Maybe that is the right thing. The only other problem I've got there is just a simple logistical one. Well, where would the words go? Because there's not an awful lot of space to sort of put words here that would be visible on screen. So anyway, maybe a bit of a practical issue there. Anyway, moving on. Satinder Hussain. I do like to pick out commenters who drop in and names that are not familiar. In other words, there must be either silent watchers or at least new to the channel. So I always do like to welcome new names to our channel. And Satinder Hussain, who I've not seen in the comments before, thank you for your comment. Great review. Thank you. Much appreciated. As I say, we do encourage anybody, if you're sitting out there quietly in the background watching our videos, please don't be afraid. Just drop in with a quick hello, or Sat Sri Akal, or even a Khalistan Zindabad. We do appreciate it. We do like those comments. And as I say, the final comments of the show go to Grow Up, I guess, Arizona, Punjab Solution, Khalistan, Lakwinder Singh, Khalistan Zindabad. And the final one goes to Narinder Sidhu, Khalistan Zindabad, James.
Absolutely, and we love it. That's a great way to wrap up another episode, Angus.
Indeed, as we hit the hour mark, we must bring things to a close once again. But thanks so much for all of you who've commented. Do keep those comments coming in. We do appreciate them. Do obviously let us know stories that you think we should be talking about. There's all sorts of comments that have been coming in recently about what's going on the ground in Chandigarh, for example, and likewise on the email. A few of you have been sending some really interesting links as well. So please do keep those coming in. It's always very very helpful for us to go research these and use our own networks to find out what's going on the ground. Don't forget, of course, you can message us directly at message@satlugetv.com if there's anything you'd like to talk to us directly with James or myself. But that's it for another day. Thanks so much for watching. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you tomorrow.